Presti up to Larson. And we've got our maul. Looks like it's brought down, I guess, cleanly, as the forwards are going to keep it in. Leinertz has to get out of there on the wrong side of the ball. And we'll go with another drive. Nikali taking this one up. Nakatini doesn't want to be outdone.
Big rumble.
Just another quick take. Really keeping the ball in tight here. And they've earned advantage. So let's see if they stretch the legs. Let's see what Robertson does with it. Dummies a pass, dummies the kick, and then does pass it to Takatsu Simpson, who puts a man on his heels. Doug Fraser, he's in try time. Doug Fraser in the corner. Old Glory extending their lead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast. We have a lot to talk about, gentlemen, in a quiet couple weeks of news. But some big things have happened up, and some banter has started online, and we're kind of chomping at the bit to get going about it. But first and foremost, how are you guys doing?
Well, it's nice to see that you care about us and you think we're important this week. Now that
because I don't have anyone else more important on the show.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, big thanks to the Rugby Rant for joining us last week too. But yeah, Dan, you're just stuck with me and Stu. I don't know, dude, guys. It's the last long weekend of the summer, so I mean, I don't know. Did you make good use of it here? Or?
Well, I'm actually spent this weekend celebrating my 30th birthday, which is tomorrow.
Oh, so, there you go. Happy birthday!
Thank you very much. Obviously, not the original style I wanted to celebrate my 30th birthday, but I think for anyone who has had a big birthday in 2020. This year doesn't count. Next year it'll be the same age plus one. I feel.
So what would be your no COVID the ideal way to celebrate your 30th birthday?
Wake up, turn on the TV, watch a rugby match in the UK at 9 a.m.
You still could have done that.
11. Yeah, but I mean the rest of Europe. I mean, and by that I mean Wales. And, then maybe, pop along to Lamport Stadium, see if there's a game on there, and then just have a good afternoon with friends doing that classic rugby tradition, drinking. I'm not sure what happens after that, and then wake up in my bed the next morning. Standard rugby fare.
Right. Well, I mean, you still could have done part of that. You could have at least done the watching rugby and drinking. You just might have had to do it in your house by yourself.
Yeah, but then I have a problem, and that just opens a whole other can of worms. Anyway, Daniel, what have you been up to?
Oh, I was freezing my arse off north of 7. We went up to my parents' trailer campground cottage set up for the last time of the summer, and it was lovely. Dad and I went for a round of golf, and we played some bocce ball, and we had a fire, and it was just a grand old time. But back to reality. Schools are kind of starting up again, so that means I'm back to work, so that'll be a whole interesting experience coming up soon.
Yeah, good luck, man. Enjoy the schools.
Yeah, it's a gong show, but we're all in this together, like they say in High School Musical. But let's get started, gentlemen. And you know what? Rumors have been flying, and Mr. Paul Tate has been keeping all of us busy with some of the things that he's been dropping here and there. And the latest thing is another star Puma is possibly joining MLR, and not just MLR, but could be joining a strong contingent of Argentinians north of the border. I guess there's just something Toronto just must have the right type of food or music or something that's drawing all these Argentinians north of the border. But Joaquin Tuculate, who has been capped by the Pumas, he's played in their U20s program. He's played for their Sevens program. He was the starting fullback of the 2015 World Cup. Has ended his contract with Los Jaguares. What does this mean for the Arrows, guys? Because this is we're starting to run out of room for players in the backfield. So what is this going to look like?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it there. There's like really not a whole lot of room for additional outside backs. Tucalet is an unreal player. He's got 56 test caps for Las Pumas. Got 18 tries in those games as well. He's played at World Cups. He's played in basically every major professional league that you would care about: Premiership, Top 14, Pro 14, Super Rugby. But he's not coming to the Arrows. It sounds like at some point the Arrows were definitely negotiating with him. But yeah, I think like ultimately though, it's just like when I first like even heard the rumor, my initial thought was kind of like why would you necessarily need that? But like, especially like kind of looking at the guys that can play fullback on the Arrows, right? Mirez, Gonzalez, Windsor, possibly, maybe Parfrey will be part of a future signing announcement too. If Parfrey's up there, like I just don't see the need for another fullback, especially a guy that might come with a bit of a price tag attached to him too. And but it sounds like there's a couple other MLR teams that are vying for his services that maybe have a little bit more salary cap space or able to afford it a bit more. And or even maybe he ends up going to Europe or something too. But I think at one point, like the Arrows were at the very least talking to him, but I don't think it's actually going to happen, or I don't really have any reason to believe that it is going to happen.
So Stu, my question to you then is, with a guy who has won 56 caps for Argentina in a 7-year span, what is any MLR team going to get? What does a 15 like that do for your squad?
Well, there's obviously the experience side that you can bring up. Like, I remember watching a highlights package of him scoring a fantastic 2 tries against England. Now, maybe it's just the Welshman in me that enjoyed it so much. But, it's one of these cases of the complete package that a fullback needs to have, like the kick and chase capabilities, and especially against players in a league such as MLR, maybe that's a skill set that can tip the scales and can take a team that's, on the cusp of making the playoffs into hosting the conference finals, things along those lines. However, I think the major thing is that the word of mouth of MLR has reached more and more South American players, because even though Paul Tate said that the Falcons or Tigers are also interested in him, he did say that the first team that was rumored was the Arrows, as well as other MLR teams. However, I would say that if the Falcons or the Tigers are genuinely interested, then they're going to be the ones who are going to win, because the money will just win out. And this is a player that can definitely tip the scale and say, over 50 caps, maybe I'm worth a bit more than what the current MLR salary cap provides.
So it will be interesting to see where he ends up lying. Something's to be said about a fletching, league like MLR. So it'll be interesting. That's for sure. Now, another bit of news was dropped in the last few days that ended some rumors. MLR, and in with conjunction with Kanaloa Hawai'i, has announced that they're going to have to wait until at least 2022, which seems so far off. But they're going to have to wait until they can join MLR. Now, guys, where did things stall or break down in the discussions with this? I mean, I don't know. We don't know a whole lot. But has there been any sign of what's been going on or what was done in the background that kind of made things stop for Hawaii?
Well, I'm not too sure what necessarily would have made things stop, but like the big thing is that in order to have an expansion team in any professional sports league, you need money. And it sounds like that 90-day window was more or less to make sure you like Hawaii had the money, and the group behind the Kanaloa Hawai'i bid had the money to play in 2021 and play 2022 and so on and so forth. So it sounds like they just couldn't get the money necessarily together by the time that deadline hit. However, like the announcement that Hawaii dropped after the MLR said that they wouldn't be participating in 2021 is really like the first sign of like I guess like I don't really like that they weren't getting along, or that the negotiations weren't actually going very well, because this was like like there is probably a bridge that has been burnt after after what they posted on their own Facebook page. And I'm not sure why they posted it, this saying things like that they have a high level of concern for the financial viability of the league, lack of like a COVID plan, schedules, things like that. And like I'm just not sure why you would want to like I feel like if you went for a job interview and it was like your dream job, and you got through like the first couple phases of the interview, and then on the last phase they told you no, I feel like your best move is to not like blast the company and complain about the interview process. It's better to just be like, thank you for the opportunity, and if something else opens up, I'll try again. Because that's kind of what the MLR did. They were like, hey, you can't get in for 2021, but if you can get it together 2022, like we'll be here waiting for you. And or at least that's kind of, or at least taking that neutral stance on their announcement. But then they just kind of like threw that back. And I think the clear sign that Hawaii screwed up with that statement is that they edited it about 2.5, 3 hours later before deleting it entirely. So that post seems like a very emotional reaction, or just something that wasn't thought out completely through. And I don't know, maybe they were thinking, if we post this up, maybe the MLR fans will be behind us and will support it, whereas when the reality, it just looked like you were taking shots at the MLR for being upset that they didn't admit you into the league.
Now, do you feel the same way, Stu? Because I certainly have an opinion about this, but I want to hear what you say first, Steve.
That's not good when Dan's. Yeah, also that's not good when Dan's like, I have an opinion on something, and then he's like, but he wants to make sure everyone else gets heard first. So, oh boy, buckle up.
So I will admit that I was foolishly optimistic about Hawaii joining for 2021, but at the same time, have you seen 2020? Can't we just have some positive news for once? I think the major crack formed was as soon as Senator Wakai publicly expressed his concerns and then refuted all of Cam Kilgour's earlier statements against the team. Now, obviously, we discussed this previously and said that things like, the University of Hawaii refused them practice facilities, but that was more to do with COVID than being the team. But the whole situation then was everything Kilgour had said had at the time seemed like it had been set in stone. Everything was already planned out, and they were just working on the like tiny legal bits. They couldn't like officially say something, but it was also an open secret. And obviously the reality now is that it's not true, or if it was, it's now a moot point. After reading both of those Facebook posts, I think there's 3 things that will need to come from it. 1, Kanaloa Hawai'i need to hire a PR manager, because this was it was childish, is how I would describe it. Yeah, it was unprofessional, and if I was to be negative and say that other people are saying that it was the test run for a Super Rugby team in New Zealand, I would consider it a failure, because why would Super Rugby grant them a license when they can't even get a project together for a team that is on equal footing as, say, a Mitre 10 club? it's one of those concerns that they will bring up and say, well, why would we invite you into one of the biggest rugby competitions in the world if you can't even fulfill these possibly smaller requirements? I will admit, I don't know what the requirements are to create a super rugby team, but moot point. Now, saying this, I don't think this is the end of any possibility of a Hawaiian MLR team for now. I also, because of the post and the reaction, I don't think there's going to be one in 2022 either.
Maybe a different ownership group.
Yeah, that's the point I was making.
I don't think,
unless the Atigas come out and publicly apologize to the board of MLR, and even then, I don't think they would be allowed to join the league at this point.
Well,
like
I think
said, they've burnt a bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so
before you go on to your crazy nonsense theory, Dan. I just think, like, Stu, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like, even if as an organization you were super upset with Major League Rugby, say the way the process went out, maybe you did want them to, kind of, show more of their cards to you as you were trying to apply to be a part of their league. But it's like a Facebook post is not the place to air that grievance. No. That's kind of like, that's a conversation. I just feel like, I'm sure, like, the teams have, like, some business dealings stuff, like, you can, that maybe other teams disagree with. I mean, you can kind of see, like, even, the Giltini's name has obviously been a point of contention this year, but it's like, it's not like you've really seen, like, any of the other owners come out and, like, outright, like, bash the name either, right? Like, it's like, they're just kind of like, it sits there. Some guys have maybe there's, like, some of those, like, low-key comments on, like, they don't like it, or maybe kind of making fun of it, but no one's been, like, outright, like, bashing the name.
Everyone's been diplomatic.
Yeah, exactly. There might be a cheeky comment here or there, but it's nothing that you can't, like, nothing that, makes it seem like there's, like, a rift between the league or anything. And I think that's, like, kind of how you would go about it. And I think, like, just being, like, having Kanaloa, and it's like, you're still trying to get into MLR. They didn't say you can't ever. They just said, like, not for 2021. And, like, you kind of turn around and just put out this letter to the public and apparently, I guess the other thing too is apparently there was, like, a longer email version of that was sent to the, like, all the teams in the league as well, which had more of, like, the same kind of language, the same attitude into it, of just kind of, like, ripping apart the MLR, which is just like, this just, like, like, I'm not like a CEO of a company or anything, but that just seems like a bad idea. Like,
I mean, if you look at the MLR's official statement, or the one they put out to the public, it's only a couple of sentences that says that the 90-day period has elapsed, and
that's all the MLR needed to say, though.
Yeah, but all Kanaloa needed to say was just
same thing.
Like, our original intention was to join in 22. With the Raptors leaving, we were hoping we could join for 21 instead. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, that's not possible. We thank the league for the opportunity, and we hope to work with them in the future. Now, any grievances they have, keep it to themselves, or keep it behind closed doors.
See, I disagree with that. So,
all right, Joe. Oh my God. All right. Well,
okay. So here, all right,
buckle up,
all right,
kids.
Yeah, buckle up.
Okay, going for a ride.
So
hopefully our fine listeners do not turn this off in the next 5 minutes.
I want to go on record and say I agree with you, gentlemen, that the Facebook post definitely had a more negative tone, and that they should have been approaching this in a more positive way. However, I don't see with what they said. I don't think what they said was wrong. They voiced their concerns about how the league is attacking COVID-19. And if it's true, and again, a lot of this is if it's true. My logic is built on a house of cards. If Kanaloa is line out their rear end, then whatever, take it for what it is.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is, like, we already have, like, the senator being like, nothing that they've said is true.
But here's the thing: is
not a lot to.
We have talked.
I interrupted you. I shouldn't have done
that. You did. We have talked about on this podcast about the league's inability to be transparent on a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about statistics. We've talked about, you know, the process for changing stadiums during the Las Vegas. We've talked about their issues with transparency. So when a team that's trying to join the league is talking about issues with transparency, about something that many sports leagues have released their information about what their plan is, what their schedules are going to look like, what will happen if COVID ruins the season, I would want that information if I'm trying to join this league. Like that should be like number one. I need a detailed list. They haven't played rugby since March.
Yeah, March.
And for a new franchise to say, I don't feel comfortable with this. Now, of course, there might be other reasons too, right? Money might be a problem for the team. You know, a backer might have backed out, or, you know, stadium venue shit. You know, we don't know. We don't know any of that. What we know is what we saw in this release on Facebook. And from what I'm reading, and I don't know, maybe I didn't get my MLR tattoo on my back like you two gentlemen have, but I'm being skeptical about it. I'm saying that I don't know if I completely trust MLR during this COVID, you know, pandemic. You know, they have released zero information about what their plan is if the pandemic doesn't get any better, which, spoiler alert, it's not getting any better in the States, and it's starting to get worse in Canada. But that being said, we have talked about MLR's transparency on this podcast previously in past episodes. We've talked about how we don't know anything about their foreign player slots and the salary cap. No transparency whatsoever. When they moved venues, there was confusion about that during the Las Vegas weekend. There's been many things that kind of popped up on the radar about transparency with this league. And when I see a new team that obviously has invested a little bit amount of money into trying to make this team happen, come out and say, we don't feel comfortable with their COVID preparation, which they've had since till March. So, you know, unless Kanaloa Hawai'i is lying, which, you know, could be very, very true.
I mean, like I said previously, though, like the senator kind of came out and was like, a bunch of stuff that they've said isn't true to start with, right?
Yes. So, you know, but we're only going based on what they've said, right? So going off of that, I completely understand where they're coming from in terms of being worried about this, because if you look at where North America is going in terms of COVID, it's not ending. So for MLR to say with, you know, without any hesitation, February, we're starting it up. And, you know, not to give a team any confidence in saying, this is our backup plan. This is what's going to happen if this happens. You know, are we going to do a bubble? Are we not going to do a bubble? So obviously the Hawaii team does not feel comfortable with the situation, and I don't blame them. And I think that they need to get that voice out there, because if I want to join in 2022, I want to see that this team, this league has made progression in terms of their planning and preparing for things like this, because 2022 is not a guarantee that COVID still won't be a problem. So I think that by getting it out there, and again, wasn't handled properly. I think my wife, who runs social media, if I showed her it, would cringe at it. But I understand why they did it. I understand why they're frustrated. And I think that the league needs to look at this and say, okay, maybe we do need to take this more seriously. Or maybe, you know, my logic is on a house of cards. It could fall very easily if it turns out MLR had a 50-page document saying COVID plans 2021, yeah. And Kanaloa Hawai'i was just like, not good enough. You know, I could be very off, but
yeah,
going off of what we know, that's where I'm standing right now.
I feel like I think I get what you're saying. It's like, yeah, like maybe, you know, yeah, we're coming out of a global pandemic, like the financial stability of the league and, you know, what to do going forward, depending on how it shapes out, should be a concern. But I don't think that's why Hawaii did that. Like, I don't think they were trying to be like, I think they're just pissed that they didn't get into the league, to be honest with you. You have Martin Pengelly from The Guardian, and his story on Hawaii not getting in. He said Kanaloa did not meet a deadline for payment to MLR and instead submitted a note of protest about the admissions process. So to me, it just kind of seems like, hey, like we were upset with the way that this went down, but it was like you missed your deadline. It kind of seems like they missed a financial deadline and are trying to blame the MLR for missing the financial
Or
deadline.
they withheld the money until they were given proper information about how the league was going to be run next year. Right? That could be an option, a viable option just as much. To say, why are we going to give this league money if they're not going to give us all the information about how a sports league and a pandemic is going to happen? And also, you got to think.
You know what though?
Sorry, Derek. I just want to say this quickly. If
right.
I'm a team that's living on a island that hasn't had a large spike in COVID cases, I want to make sure that they've got a proper health and safety program set. So when I send my staff and my players over, they're not going to be bringing back God knows what, more of the virus to Hawaii, because that would just wreck the island if there was a spike in cases. So you got to think about that as well.
I mean, yeah, no, I still don't see it. I think also, like, if you're the MLR, you were like, hey, you have this 90 days to get your money or whatever. And it's like, maybe on day 91, they were like, hey, welcome to the league. Here's everything you need to know. But they didn't get the money. So, like, right? Like, if that's the thing. Why would you divulge all this, like confidential league-wide, pay, like, financial information to somebody that's not in the league?
Make them sign a waiver saying that they're legally not allowed to, and if they do, they can be heavily sued.
Yeah, and do you think that would stop this team that just put out a 5-paragraph rant?
Yeah, and then MLR gets to make some money. MLR hasn't made any money except off of merch. Make some money off of these guys. Sue them.
They have two expansion fees coming up this year.
Okay,
LA and Dallas. There's 2 expansion.
If we ever find anything out about LA, my goodness.
Well, I mean, hey, they're going to be in the league. It's just they're being very quiet, but
very quiet.
Which is
Kanaloa LA. That's what they'll be called.
Kanaloa LA. They'll split time between the 2 places. Well, guys, if you think that this is the most heated I'm going to get tonight, you're very much wrong, because we still have much to talk about, especially near the end of the podcast. But we're going to move on, because a very interesting.
Just because you don't want me to be right about stuff and be like,
you're not right. You have an opinion, and that's fine. You're allowed to have your opinion, Derek. And Stu, you're a darling angel, and everything you say is right. But
yes, correct.
Eddie Jones.
If they thought they were right, you don't delete the post. If they have a point, you don't delete the post.
Anyway,
that's all I'm saying. If they think they're right, if they think they're in the right, they don't delete the post.
Just because they're pissed off doesn't mean they're not
but
right.
If you were pissed off and you made a statement that you were like is unabashedly true, then you would leave up that statement. If you're like, there's so much truth behind this that everybody needs to know, you need to do it. But if you're just pissed and said something you shouldn't have said, you take it down, right? So
maybe Cam Kilgore's mom saw that and said that wasn't very nice and made him take it down, like my mom used to do when I was in high school.
Well, then Cam Kilgore's mom needs to work PR for that team. Right?
Ooh, that's a good idea. Okay, Eddie Jones, head coach of England's national men's team, has joined San Diego on a minor role on their coaching staff. Stu, as our official European consult to the podcast, what can a coach like Jones bring to the Legion? He's got 6 Nations experience, World Cup final experience, helped coach Japan, helped coach Australia. The guy's just got experience up the wazoo. What is he going to bring to a team like the Legion?
Well, I think what this consultancy role will be for the time being is probably going to be a Zoom meeting on a weekly basis, if that. Obviously, if Eddie Jones can't come to the United States. Like you said, he does have tons of international experience, Super Rugby, Premiership. Of course, the Brighton Miracle. He was the coach for Japan in that amazing game. And he has over 25 years of coaching experience. And he should be well suited for San Diego Legion, seeing as neither party has won the top prize. Hey! That was a bad joke, but it's the Welsh in me.
That was just, yeah. How many World Cups does Wales have?
How many World Cups does Canada have?
The same number as Wales.
True. It's playing in red. That's
Yeah.
the crux.
There you go.
Just gonna hide my
You know,
jersey for now.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like,
that's-
can we just
How
rip
many
on?
semi-finals have Ireland been to?
They're working
mean,
on it. Okay,
You know what?
They're working on it.
They've been to the
Have you seen Jacob
semifinals since
Stockdale
Canada.
lately? He's bald.
You know what, Stu? Did you know that Canada has won
God.
just as many World Cup semifinals
God.
as Ireland? Has played in just as many World Cup
Yeah.
finals as Ireland, should I say?
Basically the same team at this point.
Yeah.
Basically.
The
Well,
same
this,
level of same number of success, anyways.
For Canada East, it's starting fly half. I'm picking Johnny Sexton.
Well, I will say Wales and Canada.
I
have
guess
as
that's
many-
very far east in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I will say that Canada and Wales do have as many Rugby World Cup wins as Eddie Jones does as head coach, not assistant, but as head coach.
now,
Before anyone
gentlemen,
comes at me.
That was a tangent. That Stu's
Yeah,
just like I need to make my. It's not.
all this started off a horrible joke.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Oh,
horrible when it's true. Anyway, hello to all our San Diego Legion fans.
Now,
Yeah, the Legion are great. The Legion are great. But yeah, like I think this will be a big move for the Legion too. Like I think at the end of the day, no matter how often he's actually there or how many Zoom calls he makes, it's like the coaching staff for the San Diego Legion is going to benefit immensely from it. It's just to have that guy have like the information to share info on tactics, on on just like the way, like philosophy, the way to go about coaching the game, that'll benefit everybody in their coaching staff, from the head coach all the way down to like the strength and conditioning guys. I'm sure will benefit greatly from that. The players will probably also benefit greatly from that. But I think, he has a similar role with the Suntory Sun Goliath in Japan. And, what he does for that is he visits them 3 weeks out of a year. Maybe that gets altered. Like, I mean, let's, hypothetically talking about a non-COVID filled year here. Maybe that gets altered a little bit with San Diego. Maybe it's like 2 and 2 to each of them, or a week and a half at each, or whatever. But then like his big thing with that team too is he also assists in recruitment. So if a guy like Eddie Jones is able to like help your team like recruit players, like San Diego's already ended up with Rob Shaw, Nanu, like on their team. They have some like big name Eagles like Augsburger on their team too. They're in San Diego, which is like, one of, if you talk to the players, is one of the absolute best road cities in the league. So, I mean, if guys, like, it's a place guys want to go live, go spend time. So, I mean, they've already attracted some big names to join that team. And, if you have Eddie Jones now, that's going to actually be able to help you out, do some recruitment. Like, I wouldn't, like, would any of us be surprised if we see more guys like Rob Shaw, from the England team, or, maybe even from Japan, or, where else is he coached? South Africa, Australia, like, if he has a lot of those connections and stuff, and he knows a lot of players at the highest level of rugby around the world. So if he's able to, get a couple of those guys to go over and put on a Legion red jersey, then like that's going to be worth its weight in gold,
Now, this was a big discussion on the MLR subreddit. Should MLR coaching staff be part of the salary cap? Because
No.
I saw there were some people complaining about this, about, why is a team that's already probably close to the cap able to sign or hire a guy like Jones?
Well, I think that kind of goes back to your transparency thing. One, we have no idea where they are in the salary cap. Players' salaries aren't public. So that's kind of like the first thing that I kind of think of whenever people complain about the salary cap, is just like that's cool that you think that they're over it, or you think that they're nowhere near it, but show me the evidence that they're over it. Because right now, yeah, we don't know what San Diego is. Plus, we also know that you can trade salary cap space. So there could be a little bit more to play with in San Diego, right? And there could be a little bit more or less to play with on any team throughout the league, right? And like, even, I guess, what was it? Like, there was that trade at the draft between New York and Dallas where they said they traded salary cap money. And it was like they didn't specify the dollar value. right, with that. So it's like we don't know if that could have been, maybe that was 20 grand, maybe that was $500. I don't know, right? Like it's so so it's kind of tough for that. But I think like in general, no, you shouldn't, like the salary cap should be for the players. The players have like I think if you didn't put a salary cap on the players, what we've kind of seen in other leagues is that, you know, you get some owners or you get some GMs that are just start throwing the money around and it becomes like a financial problem for the team. But yeah, you should be able to, like, if you have like in every other sport league, like the big four sport leagues, the coaches don't count to the salary cap, right? Like I know, like we were obviously in Toronto, big story a couple of years ago. Mike Babcock got $50 million. Like he had like his contract that does not, like that was literally MLSE being like, and the Maple Leafs being like, we have more money than every other team in the league, so we're going to throw an amount of money at a really high profile coach that everybody wants in order to get him, right? So it's like you can like kind of flex that financial muscle a little bit if you have it, but I think you have to keep it on the players though, just because I think like maybe you like, one, we don't know how much Eddie Jones is actually being paid for this. No one knows, so like whatever that dollar value is, but like I just think like yeah, if you're willing to put some money into hiring a consultant, but like another team isn't, then like so be it. Like you have your resources on each team. Each team's different, right? If you want more money to go hire some coaches, sell more tickets, sell more sponsorships, like, you know, increase the revenue that's coming into your team, right? You know, San Diego has a high attendance. They have like a BMW logo on their arm when they play too, right? Like, so go after that stuff. Go out, find a way to make more money so you can make these decisions, but keep it to the players, because then you end up with some bad situations when you kind of let teams sort of pay anything to the players, just because ownership or the GMs may end up going nuts, as we've seen in some other leagues or some other teams.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I think it does come down to, as Derek mentioned, of having more transparency with the league, and you know, obviously finances, anyone will say, is very private matter. But when it comes to things like getting an international head coach from a tier 1 nation to,
he's a consultant. Like what is, like, so they didn't even spend like the one San Diego, I don't think has even officially announced this. So we're just going off of a couple of news things, right? And
one of them's the BBC.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, like legit news sources, but San Diego hasn't even official. So like we don't even have like a job description beyond he's a consultant.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And one of the other things could then be that this is a way to skirt around the system for, say, player coaches, because then you can say, oh yeah, I'll play him as a coach, say $1 million a season, but for playing he's only pay per appearance.
I don't think Eddie Jones is going to play for the Legion though, but
I know, as in the sense of any of the currently signed player coaches.
Hey, I mean that's the thing, right? It's you know, I think you look at those like the Reddit boards and stuff, and it's like the fans, you know, are complaining about it, right? And being like, how does this fit under the cap, or how is this allowed by like the rules? And
yeah,
it's like, well, like why couldn't, like, you know, like Chris Robshaw signs, like I have no reason to believe that he can't fit under the cap, because I don't know, like we don't know the dollar value for the cap. Or like we know how much is on the cap, but we don't know what the space that San Diego has, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, there is, you know, maybe there is ways and stuff, like the rules. Like that's why I think, like we talked about it before, I think the MLR would do well to just be like, here's this, like if you don't even want to release the numbers or the names attached to the numbers, then like just release the rules. Release the rules.
Or even just give us each team's where they're at towards the salary cap and how they got
like
there.
A number.
Yeah, like just say like this is what San Diego's at. These are the transactions outside of player names that they made to get to that point. Like how they traded for more salary cap space. You know, that they don't have to name names, so that way, you know, people, if they're
one
worried
thing though is like
players,
when you start putting out like the public, make the numbers public, like if we sit down, we'll be like, it's going to be this guy should be the highest paid player. This guy should be less.
Yeah.
If it says like
right?
player contract like 20,000 and the next player contract is 2,000, you're like, well, I wonder which one is wrong.
Yeah. So Mananu's not on 2,000.
Yeah. But something to consider is that earlier this year, and by year I mean season, we had one of the biggest rugby stories being a violation of salary cap and the Saracens. And when those accusations came out, the Premiership had to publish and say which laws and rules that they had violated to warrant a point deduction. And they came out with each law, each subsection of the law, each paragraph that includes. And these are publicly available documents in the sense of you have to go on the website and find them, as opposed to, they sell them in the gift shop for $5 a pop.
I would buy one.
But
Premiership salary cap rule book. I would buy one.
But I think this is something that MLR will need to do. Hopefully, the sooner the better. In the sense of these are the laws of the game in MLR. This is why we have the 20-minute hydration break. And the hydration break every 20 minutes, not a 20-minute long hydration break. Because then it's being open and it's being honest, and that's how the game was declared, as an open game, and they need to be open about this.
But I think too, though, like the Saracens, like the Premiership kind of ran into that because their salary by a player by player basis is still like, it's not a publicly available thing too, right? Whereas like I think if you look at like, and I mean, maybe, it's one of those things that it's like the league has to grow more so people can get the resources and the time to put together these things. And that's fine. But it's like, I think one of the fun things is like, if you kind of look at the NHL, and I'm going to use the NHL as an example just because it's the league I know the most about.
And we're in Canada.
And we're in Canada, so we're contractually obligated if we mention other sports for it to be hockey. But like, there's multiple websites that you can go to out there, like General Fanager.
Fans will do it.
Friendly, that have like all the team salary cap, but information, which is a really funny thing because it's like you see like every I feel like every year around like March, you start seeing like things on Twitter creep up being like, oh no, if Austin Matthews gets 50 goals, then it triggers a bonus and puts the Leafs in over. And fans are like, do we want him to score 50 or do we want him to not? Right. And it's like, guys are being like, fans being like, do we vote this guy to the All-Star game because that could screw up our cap situation or whatever. Right.
I think
it's all available. So, but
I think MLR needs to make the decision on how far into the American sports world they want to tiptoe in. And this is something that we've talked about on this podcast, is if they want to differentiate themselves from other rugby leagues, they need to be like American leagues and say, here are our stats readily available and here are our salaries readily available.
I was just going to say, just going on that, just because it seems like it's somewhat similar. I feel like this is a wild tangent from talking about Eddie Jones joining San Diego, but I think George Killebrew did an interview on Alex Magalese, so the owner of the New England Free Jacks, on his Full Contact CEO, and he mentioned one of the things that, like, Killebrew mentioned one of the things that he was interested in doing or was trying to talk teams into is putting last names on jerseys. And it's like Stu doing that face right there. Stu's doing that face.
Premiership teams do it.
Premiership teams do it.
I don't like it.
I know that's the thing. I know you don't like it, but like, it's like,
how cool is it to say that like your family member or someone that you grew up watching and you could buy a jersey that says Rumball on the back, or you see your family member and say that is my family member. They're wearing my family's name on that back. It's something that I think that rugby just needs to be likable and do it.
Yeah, like it's not even so much. It's like we still have, and and it's like, I don't know. Like I think it's something that diehard rugby fans are awesome, and diehard rugby fans are awesome, and they're the way, and like they're like the reason that this podcast even like has an audience and everything too. But it's like, if you want like rugby to be like a successful sport, you want Major League Rugby to continue to grow, then I think like you kind of have to lean. Now, you're gonna have to lean a little bit into maybe, doing some of those like more like, I guess, quote unquote, like North Americanized things, right? Like maybe put some names on the backs as a way to just sell merchandise. Like you look at like San
The Free
Diego.
Jacks.
Yeah,
Look at what the Free Jacks is doing. Sorry, Derek. But
No, I was going to bring up something somewhat related, but yeah, the Free Jacks.
Okay,
I know
look at what the
going
Free
with
Jacks are doing. They're selling merch with names on the back.
names on the
So
back,
when
yeah.
if Derek goes and he buys himself a Dougie Fife jersey or literally anybody else that's been signed by the Free Jacks, and he's walking around downtown Oshawa and he's got Fife on the back, and someone says, "Oh, who's Fife?" And then Derek can explain. If New York wants to sell Ben Foden as a star in this league, or if San Diego wants to sell Rob Shaw, they want to put his name on the back of a jersey. So when they're walking around downtown San Diego and someone sees that shirt, they say, "Who's Rob Shaw? What is that about? Who's Rob Shaw?" That person can turn around and say, "Chris Robshaw. He's actually plays for the Legion now. He's this England star that's coming over to play." And get
the Legion
a conversation
did sell
going.
Nanu like player T-shirts.
Like
yeah. So that's that's kind of what the Free Jacks
when we're
are
a
doing,
small
too,
league
t-shirts.
that needs to get their message out to new fans, merch and jerseys are so important, because you see that. Look how much like Raptors jerseys has just become part of people's wardrobe over the past few years.
Thing now.
The fashion. We need to embrace part of that in North America.
I think though, like the key thing though,
we're just beating up on Stu. We're just attacking him with.
I'm just gonna say though,
North
the key
American
thing though, like if you do the last names though, it has to look way better than what the Gilgronis did last year. They can't be falling off during the game.
Yeah, they gotta be.
They can't be falling. Like they have to be. And I know, and one of the great rugby traditions in my mind, and this never changed this. The players have to wear the number associated with the position that they play, 1 through 15, and then 16. So never change that. If we tweak anything, Sevens has last names on the back of the jersey too. I kind of forgot about that. But like you can't like tweak that. But it's like I don't know. Maybe that's some extra money because you have to buy like 4 different jerseys that have like 4 different 7 jerseys, just depending on what the lineup actually ends up looking like. But yeah, like if that's the thing, it's like I would rather not have last names than what Austin did. But if you can make it look good, then I think could be something to look into. Stu, tell me why you muted us and hated absolutely everything about what we just said in the last 5 minutes.
Well, okay, me being going down the traditionalist route here.
Yeah.
The reason why you shouldn't have a name on the back of the shirt is because it propels the name instead of the team, in the idea that no one is above the team. The reality is that when you're doing the amateur game and you can only afford 15 jerseys, it's like, hey, you're going to fit into a medium even if you're an XL. Here you go. I can see it from like a sales point of view. Like if you had, if they had sold, like Dan Moore T-shirts for the Arrows, I would have bagged like at least 5.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's very early in the league's existence to be having legacy players, I believe. Like, maybe it will be something to say like the 5th season or going onwards. You can say, okay, now we've been around some teams have been around for 5 years. Now we have like legacy players. So it would be Ben Foden who would have by this point retired. It would have been Chris Robshaw and Mar Nonu. At the moment,
What's the thing? I think.
I mean,
you gotta make those players though. Like that's where you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta.
And I know. I think I kind of see what you're saying. When it's like, rugby is obviously a very team game. But if you have, players' names on the backs of their jerseys and stuff, right? It's like, I don't think it's necessarily takes away the individualness from it, but it makes like I think it makes some of the players it's like you can kind of go in a little bit more marketable, like in a way too, right? Because it's like if you have a new fan watching the game on TV, doesn't have a lineup in front of them, and they're just like, wow, I really like that number 7 guy. Who is that? And it's like you kind of look at the back, and it's like nothing's there. There's no indication, like nothing. You just kind of, and then it's like then you have to spend your time kind of going, and figuring it out. But like
I thi-
that's
well,
what it's
in
for.
that
It's to
case,
identify guys, right?
The
But
number
I
is
think,
usually bigger than any writing that's going to be on the back.
dude, yeah, exactly. Number 7
you-
good, but it's.
I think
you
the
know,
sevens has got it right.
Yeah, put names on the backs, man.
I
Sell
think
them.
though
Sell them.
I don't think the jerseys look any worse for having the
know,
names.
Yeah,
Look
I
at
think
how
it's just
Canada
because,
did it.
I think it's just because I don't know. But you know what? I think though the thing that we're kind of getting at here though is kind of like the difference, right? It's like, you know, Stu's being like, never do it. We kind of were North America, like growing up in Canada. We're more, you know, into, I guess, familiar with the North American style. But you know what though? Even at that though, the Yankees still don't have
Still
names
don't
on
do
the
it.
backs. They still don't do it. Every other I think every other team. I'm not 100%. Boston might not. But most of the other teams in Major League Baseball all have last names, but the Yankees don't. I feel like that doesn't hurt Yankees jersey sales at all. But you know what probably also ends up though too in a weird way? You probably don't get people buying more than one Yankees jersey because your Yankees jersey is good for ever, right? So yeah, but Stu, you know what's bad about people not buying jerseys every couple of years? You make less money on it.
All right, gentlemen, we're gonna move on because we could talk about jerseys all day. We love them.
Anyways, Eddie Jones to San Diego. Good move, guys.
Good move.
Good move. That's what that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to some fan questions, and we've got a big one at the end that's been talked about a lot. But we've got some questions from the Canadian Rugby subreddit and from I posted on the Arrows Up Facebook page, and it's got a couple good questions. But the first one I wanted to ask you guys is from Song Okay You Play Rugby on the Canadian subreddit, and he said he wants us to describe who would be the best halfback pairing for the Arrows and then for Canada. So I'll go first, just because I never get to go first.
Yeah.
No, you're usually the one asking the questions. That's why.
Yeah. I think for the Arrows, again, we've talked about it's going to be up in the air. We really don't know, especially with the addition of this new scrum half and Higgins, and we don't really know what level he's going to be at. But I think for what we know, I think Andrew Ferguson and Taylor Adams is a combo that did well near the end of the season, and I'm going with that. For Canada, much more problems, right? We don't know what. I mean, the most recent fly half, Peter Nelson, is he still going to play for Canada? That's going to be very interesting to see where his playing career takes him. I think we got to start giving Will Persilier some test caps and experience in playing. He's currently over in France, so COVID has kind of nipped that. But I'm going to go with Persilier and Nelson for the time being because that's what I got.
Yeah, I think. You know what, Stu? Go ahead, Stu.
Thank you. I also have Persilier for Canada as well, but instead I have James Biss, who is currently with Saracens as an academy player, and they're moving into the championship. Maybe he can get more time with Saracens that way, and and also, as I've been saying constantly, we need to be focusing, or Canada needs to be focusing on who's going to be playing in the 23 World Cup, the 27 World Cup, and possibly even like the 31 World Cup. You need to get the younger guys in. You need to bleed them in time for these big events. So Persilier and Biss, my Canada pick. I am also going to agree with Taylor Adams at fly half, but I'm going to go with Higgins for scrum half. I don't know, maybe it's the European in me going for the guy born in Europe. Then again, I'm also going for a guy born in New Zealand as well. But obviously, I think giving Higgins more time at scrum half for the Arrows will eventually lead him to being picked, or more likely to be picked, as scrum half for Canada. So that's my reasoning.
Yeah, I think. I think I'll hold off on any Jason Higgins hype until I see him over here. But although he does look good for Cork Con back in Ireland. But I think for me, I'm gonna stick with Ferguson and Adams as well. I think Adams is like, I mean, realistically, it's a kind of, I think the scrum half is obviously between Ferguson and McKenzie, and then, or maybe not obviously now because Jason Higgins is in that mix. And then, you know, and then I think, yeah, fly half is really, I mean, it's Taylor Adams, depending on what you want to do with Juan Cruz Gonzalez and then Will Kelly. So I'm going with, so like, I think Adams has the edge there. I think, you know, obviously it depends on what they kind of try to do with him. I think Gonzalez fits in as a 15 a little bit more, just the way the squad is shaped up so far. So yeah, I'll go with Ferguson and Kelly. I think it worked out. I think it worked out really well. I think because Ferguson's a little bit more offensive than McKenzie, that it kind of suits that suits Taylor Adams' style a little bit better. So Ferguson and Adams, that's I'm going with for my Arrows pair. And then Canada. That's fun. Yeah. You know, Will Persilier, Gareth Reese, does he still play? Is he doing anything lately?
Bad knees, I think.
Yeah. Fly half is definitely the position that we probably have to develop the most. But you know what? For now, I think Peter Nelson kind of came in like, I don't know. What did you guys think? Like, were you that impressed by him? Like,
I think he didn't get it merely. I think that he came way too late to the party.
Yeah. All right. So no, that's a no. All right.
Yeah.
That's a no.
Here, that's a no with an asterisk. If he was given, if they were able to motivate him to come in for the repechage, and then, you know, a couple of, you know, even the ARC before the World Cup, if they were able to get him to play any of those games, I think it might have been a different story. But
yeah, I mean, maybe, but the point is like, yeah, like by the next World Cup, it's not enough time. I think right now, kind of looking at Canadian fly halves, it's like, it's Will Kelly's time now going into the next section of the international window. You know, he's got to kind of, you know, that idea of the East-West game was kind of thrown out there, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But I think, you know, it's Will Kelly's time. He's got to prove that he can be the Canadian fly half because, like, yeah, we kind of have to see that. Or, I mean, you got to start digging through, looking for some other guys that are maybe Canadian eligible but born and playing elsewhere. Because, yeah, like there's really not a whole lot of options, man. It's thin at fly half. We need,
you know, it's disappointing that you're not looking at your own city of Oshawa, Ontario, for any more fly halves there, Derek. But that's fine. That's just a little tease for later. Now, we got another question on the Canadian subreddit, Canadian Rugby subreddit from Ruck Over Canada. If you were in charge of Rugby Canada, what rule changes would you implement? Now, this could be in terms of the governing of the body, or in terms of what you're putting onto the pitch.
Put last names on the back of jerseys.
There you go. I think for me, I think the real thing is consistency. I think we need to have much more consistency on who is playing, you know, game in, game out. And injuries play a big role in that. And, you know, fitness is going to play a big role in that. And I think with the evolution of MLR, we're going to have more guys playing in professional environments. Fitness and recovery is going to be much more important. So we need to start getting guys in key positions playing more. The 10, the 9, the 15, the 8. You know, Tyler Ardron is getting up there in age. We need to find the next number 8. You know, I think Rob made a great point about the spine. You know, the 2, 8, 10, 15 position. I think that Canada needs to start working on their spine. And that would be that. And in terms of, if you had asked me pre-COVID, I had a ton of opinions. But COVID has changed a lot of how I feel Rugby Canada needs to be governed. And I think they've done a pretty bang-up job during the pandemic. So I'm not going to change too much of how they're governing things. I think the Pacific Pride has really shown that they made the right decision on bringing that back. The only other thing that I would change in terms of Rugby Canada is we need to start playing teams that are beatable. And I know that's not going to bring in the crowds, but we need to build some confidence back up in this new World Cup cycle. So, you know, Bring on teams like Namibia. Bring on Russia. I know Russia has been the best confidence booster for us, but we need to start playing teams that are closer to us in the standings that, can give us maybe a win.
I mean, yeah, it's stuff like we need those guys playing a lot more games. We need everybody playing more games. Really, that's probably one of the biggest benefits to MLR. But yeah, I don't. As far as I'm not really sure as far as a governance rule or anything I would change. It would be. I think the one big thing that I really want to see, and I think it's already kind of happening, I want the one thing is what I would be doing is I really would be encouraging the Toronto Arrows to get that academy program off the ground and get rid of the idea of having the centralized sort of team, being if you want to play for Canada, if you want to play for if you want to sort of play for Canada 15s, you got to fly out to Langford and move to Langford, which might not be something that's necessarily feasible for everybody. But if you had two different bases where you can send the guys to develop, I think that would be kind of the way to go. And I think with the Arrows Academy, if that develops more, it's you can kind of divide that up, send some of the East Coast guys to Toronto, send some of the West Coast guys over to Langford. When it comes time to put together the U20 squad or, a sevens team or whatever, obviously you come together. That would probably be at Langford, but, give guys more, because it's nobody's getting rich off playing rugby right now. So give guys some more options so that they don't necessarily have to completely uproot what they're doing outside of the game.
Yeah. I have a couple of rule changes. One is to do with staff, because I remember reading a BBC article in the build-up to, I think it was a reportage, saying that Kingsley Jones was the only full-time member of the coaching staff. And as soon as I read that, face, meet, palm. Daniel talked about consistency, and I think it's not only just in terms of the playing team, it's in the coaching staff as well. You need to know who's going to be the kicking coach, who's going to be the attack coach, who's going to be the forwards coach and defensive coach, and because these are the people that you build a rapport with, and these are the people that you can learn from their skill set, and you'll know what their skill set is. And yes, there'll be changes here and there as time goes on. But if you're getting, the cheapest name possible for every big tournament that comes up, and you're getting conflicting information anywhere between 2 to 3 times a year, then the team isn't going to perform well. See Canada in the ARC for the past few years. It's something that needs to be addressed. I know that in the time of COVID, this isn't really a feasible thing to look at, but once this horrible disease is out of the way and we can focus on the future planning, then we need to have a consistent coaching staff in place for the players and in order to do well. The next thing I'd say, and this is super future long-term planning, is that when it comes to building a stadium, that Rugby Canada should have an investment in it. I mean, if you look at some of the biggest unions in the world, some of the most financially successful is England and Wales, and that's because they own their stadia. So even when an event is going on and it has nothing to do with rugby, they still gain revenue because they own the stadia. Now, of course, it is going to cost millions to build a stadia. It will be a loan, and for the next 20 or 30 years, you'll be paying off the loan and the interest on it. But once that's done, you then have a facility available for you in which you can say, this is where we will be playing our games. And for the rest of the year, it can be used as concert venues, giant conference halls, these kind of things. So it's constantly being used. That's revenue that's going back into Rugby Canada, and it's ensuring that the game has a financial backing going forward. Again, this is real future long-term planning. I'm talking 50 years minimum. But it's something that should be at least considered.
So my only problem with that, Stu, and I love the idea, is Canada will have to do it twice. Because if you look at Wales, if you look at England, if you look at Ireland, even if you look at like Australia, where most of their fans are kind of centralized in one part of Australia, Canada has this problem where they've got a big fan base in in BC, and in Ontario and Montreal and Quebec, and it's all these different spots that are hot spots. If they could consolidate their fans to one area, or if there was a guarantee that, if we put one outside of Toronto, it would be guaranteed to have, fans there every time. I mean, one of the things about what makes Rugby Canada's game so exciting, it's kind of like a traveling circus. It lands in certain hometowns or certain areas, and then it brings the crowds. That's kind of they've been their shtick. So I like the idea. It's just going to have to take some time to maybe it's going to be in consolidation with the Arrows of building that fan base and saying, well, there's an MLR team that's been here for 20 years and they've been successful and the fan base is guaranteed to come. So we're going to build our stadium here and work with them and make that happen. So I think that's the only nick in your plan, but I like it.
That is why I said 50 years minimum. That's why it's super long term. And then it would be a case of, say, maybe build it in Ontario to begin with, and then when, I don't know, BC Place needs to be redeveloped or a new stadium needs to be built there, that's when Rugby Canada can swoop in and say, well, we've got so much revenue from our Ontario one. How about if we invest 50% into this new stadium, and then 50% of all revenue comes to us? And then bam, 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 bam.
There you go.
So on and so forth. Then new venue in Quebec, and then one in Nova Scotia.
Eventual Canada takeover.
Yeah. Basically buy MLSE and just own all that infrastructure.
So, guys, we actually have a question from one of our guests from last week. Rob Hammerschmidt asked, should the MLR season be pushed back to April? That would maybe give some either the national teams or the MLR teams time to have a couple preseason games, kind of get these guys warmed up, because there's not going to be a whole lot of rugby being played in Toronto, because it'll be winter leading up to February, unless they pick up and have their training camp somewhere else like they did a little bit in their first season. So should they push it back, give teams a little bit more time to prepare, and then have a little bit nicer weather, or should we leave it as is?
Is this talking about like a COVID thing? Like if COVID,
I believe so. I think,
or like if it should be pushed back to April permanently.
Well, I'm interpreting it as just for this year.
I think it depends. I think if you, like you said, like I think the MLR, maybe they might be doing well to have maybe two plans. It's like one being like get it off the ground in February, like originally planned. But camp's not starting until January now, so like at least for certain. But it's so like maybe you got to push it back instead of the start of February. Maybe you got to push it back a little bit later. I think the thing though that you really do run into is like if you're able to play rugby by April, I don't mean you're able to play by June and July, most likely. So I think the big thing that you kind of have is like if you do push it back too, you run into a problem with the international window popping up. And I think if the international window kind of pops up and gets in the way, and it's like guys have to, miss playoff games, or they have to miss, the back half of the regular season because they're away at international duty, it kind of diminishes the product a little bit. So that might be something that to also kind of consider. Or, maybe if you do start in April, maybe you can't play 16 games. Maybe you got to play something less. But I think for right now, I think that realistically, I think for right now, you're planning on starting in February, but maybe you also have a backup plan in case you can't start in February. And I mean, we've seen with COVID how quickly the situations evolve and stuff. So we kind of talked as like a bubble might not be a feasible thing for the league. So it'd be interesting. I wouldn't necessarily rule it out, but I think right now I would still be hoping to get it off the ground in February. And then
like I said, I think the plan in April might have to be a shorter season if you did it in April.
Yeah, if it's a case of because if COVID really spikes during the winter and there's no advancements in terms of treatment or vaccine, it may be a case of starting later in April. If that's the case, and this may be a controversial thing to say, it may be that you just have to focus on the interconference games. So the West Conference only, and then the East Conference only, and it may just be one round, maybe a double round robin. Obviously I haven't crunched the numbers yet.
Yeah, that's what I think. I would come with if you started in April, I think it's a shorter season at that point.
Yeah, and then it would be the only cross conference game would be the MLR final, and that would then. But in that case, I would say if the MLR final is say at a neutral venue, and then you can ensure that it's been properly sanitized and that teams can get in there, get out as quickly as possible, and it just works for the benefit. Ideally, I'm sure we would all prefer to have the full season, but this is also 6 months out from the February start for MLR. So ideally, being the idealist and the foolish optimist, as shown with Hawaii, I'm hoping that the numbers don't spike too much this coming winter, and hopefully we can have a plan in place by the time it does come to February. That the plan is February 13th is the first game, and here we go for the start to complete a full season.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on to the last question of the night, and it's a doozy. So Cole Keith tagged our Twitter account and Brian Ray from America's Rugby News and proposed the idea that we need to bring back a Canada West versus a Canada East exhibition match. You know, with the way COVID is looking and teams making it difficult to, travel internationally, this might be the best chance to get Rugby Canada's high-performance athletes playing in important games. And the success of the All Blacks North versus South game, which no one spoil it for me. I have stopped at halftime because my daughter woke up from her nap, so I don't know how it ends. So he challenged us.
When you do finish watching that, you're in for a treat, man.
And that's all I'm going to hear from you. I don't want to hear anything else.
Dude, but it's the best game that's been played since COVID, easily. It's amazing.
So if you are all interested, Brian Ray wrote up a really good article about it and made his case for his teams. We're going to use his criteria, which is no overseas professionals will be considered. 2, all players have emerged at some point through one of the 4 selection streams, MLR, the Sevens program, Pacific Pride, or Canada U20. And we are cutting out the age limit that Brian wrote because we're just trying to have fun. 4, players are aligned as closely possible to the CRC, a provincial team they have representative. Where they have not played, either they are aligned based on their home province. And we've also kind of said that there are situations where there's certain players that was born, in one province, never represented the province, but is now playing for example, the Arrows or another team in Canada. So we're going to flex that a little bit. So gentlemen, we're going to start with the East because we're East biased.
East Coast bias.
East Coast bias. East Coast, best coast, as I have heard some people say. So let's start with our packs. So, Stu, why don't you go first?
Well, I tend to agree a lot with Brian Ray, with one major exception. And that is, of course, Mr. Q, Andrew Cotran, has to be in the starting lineup, I feel. So I'm going to say that the front row for me is Sears Daru, Cotran, and then, of course, the man of the hour, Mr. Cole Keith.
Derek, who did you choose for your front row?
Exact same as Stu. I think
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the front row. I don't necessarily want to say it's obvious because Howard is also a very talented hooker, but I think recent form, in my opinion, I'm leaning towards Quatrin being the better player at this moment. So I'm gonna go with Quatrin. That might be a little bit of a Toronto Arrows bias, but it's happening. It's happening in this. Sears Duru, Keith. I mean, if we're putting together Team Canada right now, that might be the front row or the two starting props. So that's an easy one. Front row is easy.
Yeah, I picked Eric Howard to be my starting hooker. I think that I think Quatrin had a strong start to the season, but there's just something to be said about experience, and I want an experience pack. So I'm picking Howard.
We got to get you a NOLA hat now.
Listen, if Nola Gold wants to send me from swag, I will wear it. All right, gentlemen, who are you picking for your engine house then?
Well, you were talking about experience. This is where I believe experience is needed. And again, it's 2 arrows. So my locks of choice are Shepherd and Cialini. So, and it is the arrows bias in me, but Shepherd definitely, especially with his re-signing of the past 2 weeks, and Paul Cialini, like we know what these guys can do. So for me, it's without question.
Yeah, you know what? For me, a little bit different. I'm, man, I have. You want to see what I really have here? I have 4 names written down, and I have a bunch of them that are crossed out, circled, uncrossed out, because I was trying to figure out what exactly the philosophy I wanted to do on this. So at various different times, I had Kyle Bailey, Mike Shepard, Connor Keys. I even had Adrian Wadden's name written down there at some point. But I think, like, I'm kind of – see, I know you said to take out the age limit thing, but I think there's some guys that I'm just like I've seen enough of, and I feel like – yeah, like I feel like, man, like Shepard, I know what he is. Kyle Bailey, I'm curious to see some of the new younger players. Wadden, I don't know. I feel like I can't justify Keys or Wadden over Keys, so I'm gonna go with Keys. And then Cialini gets the 5 jersey. For some reason, I was only really debating the 4, but Cialini was always locked into that 5 jersey. So I'm gonna go with Connor Keys.
I went with Kyle Bailey and Paul Cialini. Bailey is kind of just been a soldier for the NOLA Gold since their existence, and he has just been kind of the general at Canada's lineout time, and we saw what happens to the lineup when he wasn't playing, so I am going with him in my 4 jersey. And Cialini in my 5. He's just an absolute timber log. You don't need to explain why he's there. Now, gentlemen, your back rows, because I think this is a very interesting discussion. Who are you picking for your 6, 7, and 8?
Stu, keep the order flowing.
Well, again, starting with the at least vice captain and probably going to be the new captain of the Toronto Arrows has to be Lucas Rumble. He also has experience captaining the Canada national side. Matt Heaton, from what I have seen, he's absolutely brilliant and definitely. And Carl Bailey as well. I think that as a back row is very intimidating. Would it be better than Canada West? Well, I'll get onto that list in a bit. But those would be my that'd be my back row.
Yeah, I think, man, Kyle Bailey, I do love you, man, but I know what you are. I know what you are, and I think going into. I do like the idea of using this game as maybe like a world, or a Team Canada national team, like kind of to help in the selection process. And I mean, Kyle Bailey is a full out. He's going to be on Team Canada until, much like DTH Vandermerver, he just decides that he is not on Team Canada anymore. When he's actually like, hey guys, I'm retiring, don't pick me. That's when Kyle Bailey stops getting picked by teams. And for that reason, I want to try something kind of new. So flankers, easy. Matt Heaton, Lucas Rumball. My 8, I'm going with Colby Francis because I want to see what he can do against the national team players in that environment. It's your trial. You get like maybe one shot at it. So Colby, you better play good in this game, but I want to see what you can do.
You know, it's interesting. When we had Brian Ray on our podcast many moons ago, I picked Colby Francis to play for Canada in their first ARC game. However, I've taken a different approach.
This game doesn't count for anything other than evaluating players, though.
Exactly.
So I'm putting Colby Francis in.
That's fair.
If it's a game that matters, Kyle Bailey is in the starting lineup. This is a game to evaluate players, though. I already have evaluated Kyle Bailey.
I have picked Rumble at the 6. 7, I've picked Mo Abdelmenem from Austin. I think that he has played so well, and I want me a jackal. I want someone that's just going to get me the ball so I can get them out to my other more offensively talented players. And one of those guys is a former Ontario Arrow, Matt Mullins, of the Sevens program. He has played 8 for the Arrows, and he has played for the Blues as a 8. And I want someone that is going to pick that ball and run. So I'm going with Mullins as my 8. All right, and now, gentlemen, we will move on to our 9 and 10. We were just talked quickly about halfback pairs. So, Derek, you go ahead and you start first.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think this one's relatively easy too. I mean, I think it kind of depends, like you said. I think if you don't have the age. If you're putting in a little bit of an age restriction, that rules out Jamie McKenzie. But if you don't, McKenzie makes a name for him, or is obviously up for consideration. But I think I'm still going to go with Andrew Ferguson. And then the 10, like I said when we did this last time, 10's thin. So I'm going with Will Kelly. And I feel like I know who Dan might say, and my response is going to be he's on my bench. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Derek for these picks. Andrew Ferguson. I was on the fence about picking Jamie McKenzie, but I've tried to narrow it down to only one 30-plus wild card on each team. So it's gonna have to be Andrew Ferguson and Will Kelly for me as well.
Well, I do have Ferguson as well, and I have from Oshawa, Ontario, Brock Webster in my 10 jersey. Another young guy, part of the Sevens program. Really impressed me at the under-20s the last time it was run. He had a very impressive halfback pairing with Percillier. I want to see what he can do, and don't worry, Arrowheads, I have plans for Will Kelly. So let's move on. Gentlemen, who did you pick for your wingers?
Okay, well,
Derek, who did you pick? While Stu's humming,
While Stu is still picking his wingers.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, all right. So while Stu is like, oh right, there's wingers. I went with a little Sevens flavor on the wings here. So I went with Josiah Mora will rock the 11 jersey, and Andrew Coe, I put in the 14. Just both guys, just speed for days, good finishing touch, exactly what you need out of a winger. If you're looking at the Ontario system right now, as we touched on, a lot of South American guys on the wing. So we're looking to the Sevens program.
Yeah, this would if this had been decided last year, obviously it would have been Dan Moore would have been one of my choices for the wing. Retirement has ruled him out, so I've been looking through the archives, Arrows videos from last year, and my choices are going to be Kainoa Lloyd, number 11, and again Andrew Coe on the wing as well.
I went the same with Stu there. I think we need a little bit. Listen, with my fly half and another pick that I made, I need a little bit more experience than what Mora can bring me. So I'm going with Lloyd and Coach.
You can just change your fly half. That could be another option. You could change your flag.
What, am I going to change it to Will Kelly, who's also just a little baby? No, I'm not going to go with that, Derek. Moving on. Who'd you pick for your centers?
Will Kelly's capital. Stu, go ahead.
Centers, okay. So, yeah, this was a name that Brian Ray also had to try and justify having, but his work as a centre is fantastic. It's Spencer Jones, definitely, and I think to pair him with on the east is going to be Mitch Richardson.
Yeah, I was wondering how you guys wanted to rule on Spencer Jones. He's got the weird never played for a team in the CRC, born in Edmonton. Does that make him, West Coast? Does that make him East?
My theory was if Brian can put him on the East, then so can we. So if you have any complaints, Brian Ray is on Twitter. Send him that.
You know what though, and I mean, I'm going to spoil a little bit of my West team with this, but I think I was going to if it's not Jones, I think with the no age limit, it's got to Kieran Hearn would be the next guy up, and I'm like, I don't really want to put a 35-year-old in this game, but if Jones isn't there, it's him. But I think the big thing, man, is honestly, I just want to see it because, like I said, man, I think the Arrows have some of the best center depth in Major League Rugby, and I just think it would be fun to watch Jones and Richardson against Detroit and Lesage, just to kind of see how that would work. So I don't really care where he's born. This is just for my own fun in games at this point in time. It's going to be, Spencer Jones. Spencer Jones, born in Edmonton, Ontario. And that's kind of what, I don't know if that's really the justification. Mitch Richardson, man, I still said, it's unfortunate the COVID ended the season because I still think, his preseason was unreal. He was looking like he could really have an absolute breakout year. So, I'm still a big Mitch Richardson guy, and hopefully he's able to carry that over into 2021. So I'm still excited to see what he brings to the table.
So I've grown pretty comfortable watching Spencer Jones in the 13 jersey, especially when him and
is this going to be Spencer Jones on the wing thing again? Are we bringing that back up? Are we coming back to that?
I've already made my decisions for wings.
Is Detroit on the wing on Stu's team? Oh,
just because you're not creative, Derek, doesn't mean you get to make fun of us.
Wait and see.
But I have decided to go with Jones as my 13 jersey. He's got the experience. He's such a strong tackler.
You're putting him
so
13.
Creative.
You're putting Jones 13 instead of
putting Jones at 13.
Whoever. All right. Who's your 12?
Will Kelly.
Oh.
Because when he was playing in the Ontario Premiership, he was playing for Brantford.
Yeah, he plays for Brantford.
Harlequins. He was playing in the 12 jersey, and you know what? He has bulked up quite a bit from before he was ever signed by the Arrows. So I would like to see him be, another option at first receiver, much like how Owen Farrell plays for England. That is right. I'm building a little bit of philosophy with my back line.
Hopefully he doesn't tackle the same, though.
Yeah, well, if he decapitates somebody, that is the way it goes. That's life in rugby. No, but you know what? I think that fly halves need to have experience in other positions, I think 12's the perfect one. You can act as a second receiver. You have to be a strong tackler, and I think that this would be a good test for Will Kelly going forward. And guys, I think it's pretty unanimous for our 15, Patrick Parfrey. Yeah. So there you go. That is our Team East. Now, gentlemen, we're going to kind of move this along. Who did you guys pick for your Team West? Let's start with our front row quickly.
I was pretty consistent with also what Brian Ray said of Noah Barker and Jake Ilnicki, and then as hooker, the man who scored that amazing try against San Diego Legion is Stephen Ing.
Yeah, you know what? I decided to go a little bit of a different direction. It's funny when we were putting together these teams, it became quickly apparent that the East has way better forwards and the West has way better backs. And then, and that's just kind of like the fun strength of this team. So I think the West, Same thing like last time. It's like, man, I know what Nicky is. I know what Barker is. I kind of want to see some new guys. So I'm going with Pride, Loosehead, Liam Murray, Stephen Ing, as Stu already touched on. And then we're going to go with the Houston Sabercat tight head, Nick Hildenbrand. So let's roll out some of the Pride guys against, like I said, it would be like arguably the best front row that Canada can put out, barring like Matt Tierney coming over from France. But so it'd be an interesting test for those guys, but I think that's kind of the way to go here.
So with the route in which I'm going with my pack, I wanted a little bit more experience at 2. So I've got Liam Murray at loosehead. I've got Noah Barker starting at 2. He's got experience at loose and at hooker. Played a good bunch with Glendale at hooker. So going with Barker at 2, and I've got El Nicky, just because I do want to see what Liam Murray's got. There's talks of him maybe moving down south to join an MLR team. Still kind of whispers and hush-hush stuff. So I want to see what he's got. So I put him at number 1. Now, gentlemen, who did you pick for your locks?
So I went with the pick of Josh Larson, and because I think he's a great player. And then going over what Brian Ray said about Regan O'Gorman, because that was a name that hadn't stuck out to me. And then he says, oh, it's okay to include him because he's going to be an MLR from next year, and therefore he's a player. He's therefore okay player. He's not an overseas player. And I'm like, okay, sure. Whatever. And then I was like, I'll check out a highlight video of O'Gorman, see what he's like. He's in my squad as well. He's a beast, and I think he can make a big difference.
I kind of went slightly different. I mean, I think Josh Larson is the clear choice at 4. So I'd be unless I don't know, I have never know what direction Dan goes with these teams, but I think Josh Larson's safe at 4, Dan.
I got him at 5, but sure, yeah.
All right. So he's there though. He's there. And then I'm gonna go with just because a little bit less pro options. I guess out west. I'm gonna go to UBC Thunderbirds. I'm gonna take Frank Carson. Though I don't know if this reaction is from Dan here.
I got the same thing. I went with the same thing.
Yes.
Same thing. Yeah.
Oh no! Man, I'm coming. You're
turning
radical up on me. No. This isn't good. Yeah, I was gonna say I went with Frank Carson. Immense in the lineout. He was U Sports. Like he was a all-star at the university national championship last year. And I think. It's one of those guys that'd be like, if Canadians were eligible for the draft, dude, there's a lot of MLR teams that would want this guy. So, again, man, let's see how he lines up against a guy like Paul Cialini.
Yeah, I went with the same thing. I think that he's got the Carsons
making me very nervous.
The Carsons have a strong, rich history, especially with a lot of them playing together, the Carson cousins. So I think Frank is just a tall glass of water, and he's just gonna do fine. Now, gentlemen, what is your back row? Because I made a very interesting, crazy decision with one of my picks. So I want to hear what you guys went with.
I think we should hear that crazy pick first.
Yeah,
all right.
You can't start with
that.
Yeah,
exactly. No, you teased it now. Yeah, let's hear it.
So at 6, I've got Nakai Penny. Okay, yeah, makes sense. He's played extremely well for the Seawolves.
That is normal, yes.
Yeah.
At 7, I picked Travis Larson. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Played MLR. He's been on a couple teams now.
It's clearly not the insane one. So
with my number 8 pick, my number 8,
Will Persilia. What? I never know where you're going. So
I've picked a player that doesn't have much number 8 experience.
So he has none. He has none.
He has none.
He has none. Okay.
But I think that the way we've watched him play in the Sevens program leads to a strong 8-man. And really, in terms of position in the scrum, you got to push and you got to pull that ball back. And he's a strong tackler in a Sevens program. So I'm going to go with my number 8. I'm going to go with Connor Braid.
Ooh, that is
interesting.
Yeah, you're right. He has 0-8 experience. Yep,
yeah,
you're right.
You know what? When was the last time he played
something.
15s? All that stuff's gonna be fresh out of his
He
mind.
played center. Did he not?
Yeah, he played center, but
center 15s.
If he was playing lock or hooker, I would be more concerned about his scrum ability. But as an 8-man, you just have to push. I'm sure there's more nuance to it. I'm sure 8 men come at me. I'm just a prop, whatever. Do as you will. I'm just saying that I want someone that is going to, again, same reason why I picked Matt Mullins. I want someone that's going to come off the back of that scrum fast and have playmaking ability, and he's got that.
I'm not how. I don't know. I guess this is just how old is Connor Braid?
He's 31.
I think that's the thing I don't like the most about it is like why change a guy's position when he's over 30 already, and that likely won't be on any World Cup squads going forward. That's I guess it's not like guys. I'm like it's not like this isn't like Giuseppe Dutoit should play wing or anything, but it's I don't know, or maybe it is. Maybe
let me put it to you this way, and my reasoning with
he's
it,
big.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Big sevens players don't last long in sevens for long, and they make the transition, the 15s side of it, and that's where we go. But Derek, you go. Tell us who you're picking to finish off your pack.
Right. Well, all my back row players for the West have back row experience. Crazy concept, but they all do. So I got Travis Larson at 8. Nakai Penny I put at 7. Man, I really want to see Nakai Penny get a legit shot at the national team. So I think that would be the interesting thing with this game is to see him head to head with Lucas Rumball, Matt Heaton on the other side. I'm going to go with my 6 though. I'm going with James O'Neill from University of Victoria, the UVic Vikings there. That is a player that, without a doubt, if Canadians were eligible for the draft, would be the property of some MLR team right now. Just kind of coming out of school. Hopefully he finds a home and lands somewhere. One of those things where the Arrows back row is ridiculous. So that's a tough team to crack. But hopefully he ends up somewhere else. But yeah, he was former U20 team captain, just tore apart U Sports when the time that he was here as well. So he needs somewhere else to play. And I think, if he doesn't have a contract yet in the MLR, which he doesn't, but if this game were to actually happen, it would be like a good showcase for him. Plus, as we're kind of discussing here, it's the West Pack isn't as deep as the East. So stretching into the university and the BC Premier League is something that I think needs to be done here. And, it's just goes kind of similar. We got to start seeing what we have in some of the guys that are, he's dominating the U Sport level. So I think it's, put him up against Matt Heaton and see what he has. So see how he measures up. Cause I think we got to be looking to the future on these things now.
What about you, Stu? Who did you pick?
Well, I think there's a common theme with 2 of these players here. So my number 6 would be Nakai Penny, and my number 8 would be Travis Larson, which we've established are the picks for the West. But the reason, so those 2 picks both have MLR experience, but my number 7 has just recently become an MLR player, the new signing for the Arrows, the exact dimensions as a certain Man of Steel from Krypton, is Siaki Vikilani. He's 20. He's 6'3", and it's that's what you want. You want the guys that already are going to get MLR experience to then be progressing to play for a Canadian side in this case. And yeah, I give the kid a shot. Definitely, I think he, get him in straight in at the deep end and see how it goes.
I had him on my bench.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, gentlemen, who are your halfbacks? Because this is. What are you guys picking to control the game for this West team?
Well, I've gone for what I think is probably the safer option. I know there's more of a choice for the backs in the West, but I've gone for Jordan Sandover-Best for scrum half and Robbie Poovey for the fly half position.
Yeah, I think I like Povey at fly half. I think I agree with that. I think my other option that I was kind of thinking of was Hirayama. But again, that kind of goes against my look into the future philosophy. But I think if you were going out, you know what? Like, I think if we had if we involved the overseas players and we actually just wanted to be like the best East team, the best West team with no restrictions on where anybody to play, it would look a little bit different. And I think maybe there'd be less focus on that. And I would just want to see it kind of like a New Zealand North versus South style, just throw the 46 best players in the country on the pitch. But because of that, though, I'm going to go with Povey. If not, Hirayama, I think would be my West scrum half. Because I want to look to the future, Povey. My 9, I am doing a whole bunch of wacky things with the rule book here because Rugby United New York alerted the Toronto Arrows to a player that has a Canadian passport in Jason Higgins. And Jason Higgins is born in Ireland and by virtue of that has not played for a CRC team. And so for the sake of my argument, Ireland is on the west coast of Canada. And based on that, because I can, tell me what in the rules is telling me that I can't do this, Dan. You're looking at me funny.
I mean, technically, the argument you made for Spencer, if the argument we made for Spencer Jones was he hadn't played for a CRC team, and we were basing his East Coastness on the fact that he plays for the Arrows, then Higgins should also be an East Coast guy. That's my only argument.
Also, Ireland is east of Canada.
Well, I know Ireland is east of Canada, Stu. It's called a joke. You know what? Yeah, but you know what, though, Dan? He hasn't played a game for the Arrows, has he? Which means you actually don't.
He's a free agent.
He's a free agent, exactly. By the rules,
Canada, at least,
you don't burn your eligibility until you actually play for the team. Is that a fair point?
That's fine.
That's a fair point. You don't burn eligibility until you play.
In the means of time, because it's getting late, I will give this to you.
All right.
Sure.
Basically, I'm playing. All right. So I have a reason for it. Basically, it's because if you don't do that, like you said, we're kind of ending up with, probably Sandover-Best there. Maybe Crosby Mason as well. Kind of going that route. Pacific Pride and UBC there, but if what I kind of want realistically is if we're looking at Ferguson for like the next World Cup and stuff, Ferguson and Higgins right now, let's, as Higgins has come in, he's like, yeah, he's eligible. Cool. Let's put him up against some of the eligible scrum halves in Canada, right? So right now it's like if you're kind of looking past McKenzie just because maybe he might not go to the next World Cup or just because, due to retirement or, getting up there in age or whatever, so the next guy up is Ferguson then. And so I just want to see Higgins versus, I guess, with the exception of Persilier, the best scrum half in Canada, Ferguson. Yeah. If you take out McKenzie, you take out Mac because Mac's retiring. Those are the scrum half, and you take out McCrory. Like those are the scrum halves at the World Cup. So it's like
I completely forgot about Gordon McCrory.
Dude. Yeah, it's right, but it's like it's thin, right? So I'm blending the rules to see him solely to see him play against Andrew Ferguson. Fair. Let's stack them against each other. But I do like Stu's pick of Sandover-Best too. But
I took my 9 from sevens, and you know what? I don't need to see a battle in the sevens. I already know that Persilier and Ferguson are going to be our 2 scrum halves that we're going to be dealing with in the next World Cup cycle, and they should be.
Unless Higgins is better, and then in which case we'd use this game to find out.
I would still say Persilier is our best.
Persilier is the best scrum half. It's in Canada. It's
who I'm picking for 9 is I'm going to give him a send-off for everything that he's done for the program. And for the sevens program, I'm going with Nathan Hirayama at my 9.
Oh,
if you look at
9, okay.
I'm going within the 9, and my reasoning is if you watch the way that he plays in the sevens structure for Canada, he is one of the first guys almost every single time that is throwing that ball out when there's a rock. He's right. He's there first. He's got that speed, and sometimes he interchanges with Harry Jones. So I like that. I like that he's got that. He's got the 10 experience because he played at the World Cup as 10, and he's also played for the 15th program as a 10. But I want to see him as a 9, just because honestly I don't like my options at 9 anywhere else. And I've also picked Robbie Povey. I think again when we talk about the next World Cup cycle and consistency. Let's give Robbie Povey more of a chance to play at 10. He was kind of shoved out of the repechage and then never really looked back again by Kingsley Jones. And honestly, I think he probably could have done as good of a job McRory did.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Povey.
I think it'll be interesting with Povey now that he's on Houston and they have Sam Windsor there, how he gets utilized because it's like that could be an interesting thing. Like if he ends up playing like a full season of MLR at fullback and then you bring him to Canada and you got to ask him to switch positions and stuff too. So, I mean, like I said, I think looking forward, like just in general, looking forward, you kind of have Will Percillier is the scrum half and we need to get him into as many games as possible. It's good that he's playing in the top 14, so that's where he should be. That's great. But I think we got to figure out a fly half. I think that's the biggest hole in this team right now.
And you know what? Like we watched a 10 and a 15 in the Arrows play pretty fluidly with Sam Malcolm and Taylor Adams. Yeah. So I don't hate the idea of Povey playing 15 and learning from
I don't hate the idea either, Windsor. But it's it's a jump in position. And that's the thing too, right? It's like the two, like the fly halves that the Arrows have used the most, like whatever the number is, there's way more minutes played by a New Zealand fly half than a Canadian fly half. So which I mean is the way it should be on the Toronto Arrows, and that's not like a knock or a complaint or anything. It's just right, but it's like we do have to, like, that's our thinnest position, so there's got to be some solution to come soon. For sure. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Who did you guys pick for your wingers?
Oh, am I glad you asked that question. So
no.
So I think one of my wingers. I'm annoyed that he's playing for the Seawolves at the moment. Maybe it's the Ospreys fan in me, but it has to be Jeff Hassler. Then for the other choice, I was incredibly tempted to pick Dutoit on the wing. But
oh, God.
I decided against that. I think
as long as you decided against, I don't even care who this is anymore, as long as you decided against Dutoit on the wing.
Remember I said I pick one guy who's over 30 as a wild card. Now, technically, like some other players that we mentioned, not from Canada, because he was born in South Africa, but he came to Canada in Regina, Saskatchewan, recently retired from international duty, but I'm bringing him back for one final.
Listen, this isn't international. This is a national game. So.
Exactly. So I am bringing in DTH Van der Merwe.
See, if Stu can do that, I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of that either.
I didn't think of it either.
But if Stu can do that,
no, his thing makes way more sense than yours.
He doesn't have a contract though. He doesn't even have a contract.
That we know of.
The last team he played for was in Scotland.
That we know of. We don't know that he doesn't have a sign.
That we know of
exactly.
Officially.
So
the bending of the rules is the exact same. I'm just using DTH to defend Jason Higgins playing for the West Coast.
It doesn't work. Who did you pick? It's Derek.
Well, now I picked DTH Van der Merwe. And now I had for my, what are we doing? Wingers? Jeff Hassler and Doug Fraser.
I almost had Jeff Hassler and Doug Fraser. I tossed around that idea. Really liked what Fraser did this season, but I wanted to go a little younger, and I'm picking another guy from the 7th Circuit. I'm picking Jake Thiel. I want to see what he can do.
I had Jake Thiel on my bench too.
Yeah, no,
So
I
all the slight like one-off things. I feel like we're not too far off, except there's a couple weird Connor Braids playing 8-man, but like I feel like in general we're not too far off from each other here.
Okay, guys, who are your centers? Because I think this one is
this one's easy,
interesting.
Right?
No,
is it easy or interesting? Oh, right. I'm talking to you guys. This could be very interesting. I already said my centers. G and Lesage. That's what we're going with.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. It's Detroit and Lesage. I know
this is
Detroit maybe on the wing, but no, I'm going to pick him as center with Lesage.
So I almost went full weird on you guys, and then I decided to taper it off. I almost
Connor Braid playing 8 isn't full. You know what?
I almost picked Quinn Nguati as my starting 13 and not Ben Lesage.
I mean, hey, at least he's a center.
Whatever. He's Connor Braid's not a center. He's a sevens player. Listen, that's the way I'm looking at it. I went with Lesage in my 13 jersey. I just can't not justify him being there. But like Derek has said, I kind of know to a certain extent what Detroit can do. I mean, he's an evolving player. He's still very young. But there's another young player that plays in MLR that's a center that I want to know what he can do at a higher level. And that's George Barton. I know that he's been capped, but the rate in which he's been playing for the Seawolves, and like he looks like a prop, and he runs like a center. He's incredible, and I want to see what he can do. And again, if I'm matching him up against the East team that I've made, I think that's a very interesting battle between Barton and Kelly. I want to see what Kelly can do when he's got that running at him. So in terms of challenging my own teams, and just in terms of my own entertainment value, I want to see that go. And I think that I think that they complement each other. I think that, Barton plays a very north-south game. I'm going to run through you. And I think that he's also got some nice hands that he can send that ball out to Lesage. And how many times do we see Lesage to Moore or Lesage to Adams? Or, he's got such a good playmaking ability that those two can work well together.
So what was your full weird? Was it just Barton?
Oh, my full weird was like I want to
know what your full weird was.
But it was Barton and Nguati, which it wasn't full weird, but like I just wanted two towering monsters in the midfield, prowling.
At least Nguati plays center. At least
whatever. You just don't have any creativity, Derek. All right, and I think again it's a pretty obvious
creativity.
choice.
I just bent the rules to put an Irish guy on the West team.
That's fair. You basically just all right. And our last choice, guys. I picked Theo Sauter. I think you guys are crazy if you're not picking him.
Yeah, I picked him too.
Yeah, easy. That's an easy one. Yeah.
My sweet little brain hopes that once the Olympics are over, both Coe and Sauter will make the march back to Ontario and play once again for the Arrows, and then maybe the short-term contracts of some of the South American guys will kind of go away, and it'll be like a welcoming home party, and they'll be stuck with the 15s program. So that's how I envision it. Sauter is going to be, I think, a big piece of Canada's future.
So, who coaches them?
I think that you got Jamie Cudmore in the West and Silverthorne in the East. I think that's a slam dunk decision.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout to make.
Or you can make it more fun, and you can make it like UFC, where they had former fighters, the coaches, and you could have Aaron Carpenter as the East coach, because then they could banter about each other about being former teammates. I actually like that idea better. I'm going with Aaron Carpenter as my East coach.
See, my what I was thinking was I was going a little bit broader, I guess. My thought was because Rugby Canada is based out of Langford, you get Kingsley Jones and the Canadian national staff coaches the West, and then Mark Winokur, Chris Silverthorne, and the Arrow staff coaches the East, and then have that happen. Go back because we have talked about how they kind of play. The games are a little bit of a different play style. The attacking structure is a little bit different. Throw them head to head against each other. Let's kind of see what happens. Because that'd be an interesting little. I just think if you did the full staffs, I think that'd be a little bit of an interesting wrinkle to put into both of the games or into this game here.
Now, guys, we've had people ask us also, what would be the structure? I think that, just starting for now, I think a one-off game is more than good enough. Well, guys, I think that's it for tonight. We've had lots to talk about. Stu, if they want to follow us on social media, where can they go?
They can go to Twitter and see the Rouge Rugby Podcast. Or the Rouge Rugby, I believe it is. We're on Anchor FM and on Spotify. And we're now also on our YouTube channel as well, the Rouge Rugby. So make sure to check out the visual representation of this podcast later this week.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Everyone, enjoy your start to the fall, and hopefully maybe I'll get to finish that North and South game. Cheers, everyone.